In a hotel hallway, an event planner slaps a tray from an older dishwasher's hands and orders him to pick up the shattered glass, publicly humiliating him. A banquet bartender steps in, calling first aid and escorting the man away, risking his job and getting suspended on the spot. Later, small changes ripple through the workplace as a jar of hearing aid batteries appears and quiet hand signals replace shouting, reframing the shocking moment without fanfare. Just a quick note before we begin: hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. The event planner slapped the tray out of his hands. A dozen champagne flutes hit the carpet and burst. Bubbles hissed. The man in the wet apron flinched and drew his fingers back, and a thin line of red ribboned across his palm. "Look at me," she snapped, stepping into him. A navy suit brushed the wet apron. A headset wire curled from her ear to a radio clipped at her waist. "I said Hall C. Hall C. Do you understand? Are you deaf?" He blinked at her mouth, not her eyes. Rinse water ran off a rack and spattered the side of his faded sneakers. A busser froze with a stack of salads. Two bridesmaids slowed, then decided they didn't see anything, their sequins flashing as they passed. Evan was slicing limes at the cocktail station when the first glass burst. He looked up and saw the tight triangle. The planner with the clipboard, the older man with the wet apron, the glitter of fresh-strewn glass. Behind him, the ice bin hummed, the bar printer chirped. He had a line: "Uncle with an old-fashioned, two guys arguing over IPAs, 12 cosmopolitans called for the head table." The planner wrote the schedule. She'd given him lead bartender for New Year's after 3 winters in the back bar. He thought of the schedule like a fragile thing. He thought of his daughter's cleats he promised to buy on Saturday. Rent due Monday. He stared at the man's bleeding hand and heard the planner's voice go hard. "Pick them up," she said, pointing at the shards. "Now." The older man bent like it was his fault the tray had a lip. His cheap beige hearing aid blinked a tiny red light. His name tag said S. Rivas, offset, and wet. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "Hey," Evan called, loud and quick, before he could think better. "First aid." No one moved. The planner didn't look toward him. The busser's shoulders crept toward his ears. He stepped around the glass and put himself between them. The air smelled like spilled Prosecco and sanitizer. His shoes slid a little on the wet patch. "Stop," he said to the planner, low but clear. He held his hands away from his sides, open. "He's cut. Then he can go to first aid after he cleans it up." Her laugh was short. She lifted her radio. "We have 200 covers, and he wants a break now? Who are you again?" "Bar," he said. He unclipped his own radio and pressed the button. He had never used it for anything beyond "we need more lemons." "First aid to Hall B," he said into it. Voice flat. "Employee injury. Glass." Her mouth tightened. "You don't call codes," she said. "You don't leave that bar. You leave and you're done. Understand me?" "I hear you," he said. He took the older man's wrist gently, turned his palm. In the crease, a shallow cut weld. Evan reached over to the linen cart and grabbed a clean bar towel. He wrapped the hand and knotted it quick. "We're going now. You put that bar key down and you don't pick it back up," she said. The clipboard lifted like a shield. Evan set his key ring on the linen cart, on top of tuxedoed napkins. It was heavy and loud. "Cover me," he said to the busser without looking, and the kid nodded because there was nothing else to do. Someone in line at the bar said, "Can I get a..." And the kid said, "1 second." He put his shoulder between the planner and the man and steered him down the service hallway. He felt the planner's stare between his shoulder blades. He heard the bar printer keep chirping behind him. He felt stupid and right, and like he had jumped off a small ledge. Security came fast, the same two who always covered weddings. The taller one in the blazer fell in behind them. The shorter one with the buzz cut walked up alongside. "What's going on?" he asked. "Glass cut," Evan said. "First aid?" He didn't slow. "Manager says you abandoned your post," the tall one said. This was script. "We need you to return to the bar." "I'm taking him to first aid. Then I'll return," Evan said. He didn't look back. He made his voice calm. "Write me up. Manager says you're suspended pending review," the short one said. Also script. They all knew how this went. "You need to clock out." "After I get him bandaged," Evan said, and pushed the door open with his hip. He tried not to wince when the older man hissed as the towel slipped. In the first aid closet, the air smelled like tape and old coffee. A poster with a cartoon of a choking man peeled at the corners. A metal cabinet held bandages and gauze and a dented bottle of saline. A stack of accident report forms slumped on a shelf under a dusty defibrillator. Evan washed his hands, then peeled the towel back. The cut was clean and shallow. The older man stared at his mouth, and then at Evan's eyes. Up close, the hearing aid's little plastic faceplate was scuffed. "This will sting," Evan said, and poured saline along the cut. The older man sucked air. The plastic bottle crackled in Evan's palm. He patted dry with gauze. He kept it simple. "You good?" The man nodded once. His shoulders dropped a half-inch. Evan wrapped the hand. He gave him a paper cup of water from the cooler. He handed him his own black vest from his back, so the man had something dry on his shoulders. In the hall, footsteps passed, then paused, then moved on. A radio crackled with someone's code for more ice. "Name?" Evan asked. The man touched his chest. "Saul," he said. He pronounced it soft. He swallowed. "Saul, Evan," he said back. He offered his hand, then thought better, and tapped his own chest with 2 fingers. Saul nodded like he already knew 100 small gestures in this place. Evan stepped into the hall. The security guys waited like traffic cones. "I'm going to clock out," he said. "Then I'm coming back here to call him a ride." "You can't be back of house after clocking out." The tall one looked sorry. "Then I'll call it from the lobby," Evan said. He walked a long way to avoid the planner's station. He listened for his name on a radio and didn't hear it. He slid his time card and watched the little red light blink. Suspended already felt like a word that had weight. He passed the gift shop and saw a row of impulse buys, chargers, headache pills, lip balm. A spin rack held small battery packs. He stopped. 312 hearing aid. He bought a 3-pack with crumpled singles from his bar till because he hadn't had time to drop the envelope in his locker. The clerk scanned and didn't ask. He went back the quiet way. He slipped into the closet. Saul sat on the stool with his bandaged hand held up like he was remembering not to use it. He looked tired in the way of people on hour 10. "Hold still," Evan said. He held up the tiny brown battery stuck to its card. Saul watched his hands, not his face. Evan cupped the hearing aid in his palm, found the compartment, clicked it open. He slid the battery in. It gave a soft, brave little beep when it made contact. Saul blinked. "Oh," he said, eyes widening in the quick private way of someone surprised by a basic thing working again. He touched his ear. "Oh." He looked at Evan's mouth a second time. "Gracias." His voice was slow, careful. He said the word like he was turning it in his hands. Evan nodded once. He tucked the rest of the batteries into a zip pocket on Saul's apron and showed him the pocket with a tap. He wrote a number on the back of an accident form and slid it onto the shelf. "If your hand hurts worse, call me," he said. "I can run you to urgent care." He didn't know if he could, but he meant it. The planner appeared in the doorway, flanked by HR and a sweater. She had her clipboard hugged to her chest now. "You need to leave the property," she said. She didn't look at Saul. "We'll email." "I'm leaving," Evan said. He looked at Saul, not her. "He's okay." He lifted his palm and dropped it, a little wave. Saul mirrored it with his bandaged hand. He put his vest back on, damp now, and the cold made him feel human for a second. He walked with security down the service hall. He passed the bar. The busser, eyes wide, was muddling sugar clumsily. The uncle at the bar held a 10 in the air, like a flag. Evan kept moving. The clock-out light blinked again. The supervisor with the frosted hair didn't meet his eyes. His locker hung open, and his new slip-resistant shoes sat there, still smelling like rubber. He took his old beat-up pair instead, and left the new pair in the locker door shut again. He didn't know why. He only knew Saul wore sneakers with the soles worn smooth. At the lobby doors, he stopped and turned. He dug in his pocket and found what was left of his tips, a roll of 1s and 5s bent in the middle. He took out enough to cover the ride and some. He walked back to the front desk and asked them to call a car for Saul to the address on his time card, which he had quietly taken a photo of with his phone when he'd been in the closet. He left the cash with the front desk in a hotel envelope and wrote Saul on it and gave the clerk a look that said, "Please, just do this." The clerk nodded like a person and slid it under the blotter. He went home with his pockets light. He slept like a stone and woke up at 3 with the feeling of glass underfoot and his keyring under a stack of linen. Later that week, he came back to pick up his check. He kept his eyes on normal things: the staff fridge with its labeled yogurts, the bulletin board with outdated potluck flyers. The ballroom hall smelled like lemon oil. The event planner looked through him and then looked at her clipboard. He noticed things that hadn't been there before. On the shelf by the time clock sat a clear jar, half full of 312 hearing aid batteries, a piece of tape across it that said, "Take 1." Next to it, a printed sheet with hand signals. A palm up for stop, a tap to the upper arm for attention, 2 fingers to your eyes for look here. Over the dish pit, someone had taped a note in block letters, "No hands on staff." See HR. In the kitchen, the dish area had a new rubber mat. Saul wore a new pair of black non-slip clogs that looked one size bigger than his sneakers had been. His bandage was gone. He tapped a cook on the shoulder and made the palm-up gesture. The cook nodded and moved a rack out of the way, without a word. The hearing aid in Saul's ear held a clean battery, and when he turned his head, it caught the overhead light in a quick, stubborn glint. At the bar, the busser took a second to pretend to wipe the counter. He slid Evan's keyring out from under the register and pushed it toward him, hidden by a stack of cocktail napkins. "I didn't want to give this back," the kid said in a whisper. "I told them I didn't know where it went." Evan laid his palm over the keys. They felt heavier than before. He didn't take them. "It's fine," he said. "Hold on to it for me." He meant, "You'll need it before I will." He meant, "It's not for me right now." On the board outside HR, a new line in the staff handbook printout had a yellow highlight. Accidents. All staff may call for first aid. No one needed permission to say a basic human thing out loud. It was typed small, but it was there. He paused by the service door where a slice of late sun cut across the floor. Dust drifted in it, like lazy snow. His chest felt strange, empty of the usual rush. Out in the lot, a shuttle idled and a driver leaned on his elbow and watched nothing. He thought of the small beep when that battery clicked, the way Saul's face finally lifted to meet his eyes. He thought of his daughter's cleats, and how she'd tied them too tight, but insisted she knew what she was doing. He had lost a week's worth of shifts and a title he had wanted. He couldn't feel the edge he'd fallen from anymore. He stepped into the bright stripe and held there for a second, palms down, feeling the thin warmth. In the dish area, someone laughed. In the corner of his eye, the jar of little copper circles caught the light and flashed, then went dull again, then flashed. It was just a jar on a shelf, but it was there, and it was full enough to notice.